What if the true source of power isn't in what's loud, but in what's quiet? What if the most dangerous minds in the world are the ones who never raise their voices? Instead, they influence, manipulate, and control from the shadows, using the power of unseen intelligence. This kind of intelligence isn't about brilliance or knowledge, it's about precision, secrecy, and the ability to bend the world to your will without ever making a sound. In this video, we'll uncover the type of intelligence that governments fear, corporations track, and individuals unwittingly surrender to. Ready to see the world in a way you've never seen it before? Stay tuned. The hidden art of dark intelligence power doesn't always roar from the podium or spark in grand gestures. Sometimes, it's the calmest people in the room who control everything. They don't need applause or recognition. They move like shadows, influencing decisions without a single word. This isn't about loud brilliance, but quiet, surgical precision. The room was dim, the walls of glass stretching upward to meet a sky that was turning dark. A cold wind whipped across the skyline, and the city lights blinked in rhythm below. Inside the room, there was a stark contrast to the polished surfaces, the high-end leather chairs, and the faint hum of technology. The office was clean, efficient, but it didn't hold the warmth of the common man's living room. It was built for decisions, important decisions. Not everyone could sit here. Not everyone had the calm demeanor to hold their own in such a space, but Elise Winters was different. She stood at the edge of the table, barely visible to the group of executives gathered in the boardroom. She wasn't the first to speak, never the loudest. She preferred to listen. The others were busy debating the finer points of a new investment opportunity, throwing figures and projections around as if the fate of the company depended on it. They didn't realize it yet, but the real power in the room wasn't in the people who were speaking loudly or who seemed to be leading the charge. It was in Elise's silence. This form of intelligence is so subtle that it's invisible to most people. It's feared not for its brutality, but for its discretion and its ruthlessness. It's never taught in schools because it operates outside of the rules we're encouraged to follow. No one will teach you this in your academic textbooks or in polite society. In fact, most people don't even realize it exists until it's too late. Her silence was not idle. She was watching, taking mental notes of every small twitch in their eyes, every shift in their body language. Their words were simply distractions, easy-to-follow noises that covered their real intentions. What she wanted were the small, subconscious reveals, the way someone would look away just a little too long when talking about a certain subject, the way the veins in someone's hand would tighten when mentioning a name. These small details were more important than any PowerPoint presentation or executive summary. In a world that prided itself on competition, on innovation, and on quick thinking, Elise had come to understand that the true intelligence lay in the spaces between the noise, the quiet moments, the pauses, the hesitations, the subtleties of human nature were where true power resided. Once you understand how dark intelligence works, your perception of the world will shift dramatically. You will see the deeper motives behind every interaction, and you will start to notice things you once overlooked: the hidden power dynamics, the subtle manipulations, and the strategies playing out beneath the surface. The meeting progressed, and Elise's eyes narrowed slightly when Victor, a key figure in the company's legal department, made a suggestion about a merger. He spoke with the kind of confidence that came from decades in the industry, but Elise was not fooled. She saw the flicker in his eyes, the brief moment of unease before he spoke. He had a hidden agenda, one that was unrelated to the merger itself. Her intuition told her that his personal finances were tangled with a competitor who stood to gain much more from this merger than anyone had realized. This wasn't just about business, it was about his future. Elise made a mental note. She'd use it later. The meeting concluded without any major disruptions. Everyone stood, exchanging pleasantries, but Elise stayed seated, watching them leave. Her mind was already working, calculating the best way to turn this small piece of information to her advantage. She knew the game. She had been playing it for years. Understanding dark intelligence. So, what exactly is this dark intelligence? It is not evil, it doesn't belong to villains, but it thrives in the spaces where most people avoid, in the shadows of human behavior. It's the kind of intelligence that works silently and goes unnoticed, like a chess master moving their pieces without ever being caught. Elise's apartment was a far cry from the corporate boardrooms she frequented. It was quiet, dark, and full of art that told stories of places she had visited but would never speak of, private, forgotten places. It was her sanctuary, a reflection of her mindset. Her thoughts were often sharper here, more focused. She had spent years cultivating this environment, one that allowed her to think without distraction. She moved gracefully to her desk, flipping through files with a deliberate, unhurried pace. There was nothing chaotic about her life. She had learned long ago that chaos was the enemy of dark intelligence. To be effective, one had to be calm, precise, and most of all undetected. You've probably encountered it before and not recognized it. It is in the person who never shouts to make their presence known, but commands attention with a mere glance. They don't have to speak often, but when they do, their words feel like weapons, sharp and calculated, cutting straight to the heart of the issue. Their power doesn't come from boasting or self-promotion, but from a quiet control over the conversation and the people around them. Victor's voice echoed in her mind as she reviewed the merger documents again. She knew he would come to her for help, but it wouldn't be because he trusted her. It would be because he had no other choice. People like him, people who are desperate to maintain their position, always turned to the ones who controlled the narrative, even if they didn't realize it at first. Elise knew that the true power in any room wasn't about having the loudest voice. It was about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Her silence was far more powerful than any speech could ever be. Dark intelligence isn't about being loud. It's about knowing when to be quiet and watching how others respond. It's about mastering the art of subtle influence, seeing what others overlook, understanding what they fear, and manipulating the invisible forces that shape their decisions. As the hours passed, Elise went deeper into her work, pulling strings from behind the scenes, setting things in motion without anyone knowing. The world would think the decision had been made by the board. They would think that the merger was the result of a long discussion, carefully negotiated between powerful minds. But Elise knew better. She knew that the decision had already been made before anyone had even stepped into the room. The transformation begins once you start tapping into this kind of intelligence. Your entire worldview will shift dramatically. You'll stop reacting to the chaos of emotions and instead start calculating the most advantageous moves, always several steps ahead. You won't be the person who hopes for the best. You'll become the one who engineers those outcomes. Elise's transformation had not been sudden. It had been gradual, almost imperceptible to anyone watching. But as she walked through the city the following day, she felt the shift. People weren't watching her. They weren't paying attention. They were too busy with their own concerns, their own problems. And that, in itself, was the perfect environment for Elise to thrive. She could make the moves others couldn't see. She could act where others hesitated. This type of mind doesn't crave attention or approval. It doesn't beg for recognition. Instead, it places itself in positions where it can achieve influence effortlessly. It won't engage in battle using emotional outbursts or raw aggression. Instead, it guides conflicts toward conclusions that serve its purpose, often without anyone even realizing it. At a charity event later that week, Elise encountered one of her closest allies, Gregory, a man she had worked with for years. He was well known, charming, and always the center of attention. He was the kind of person people liked to be around, but Elise never relied on the likes of others. She understood that Gregory's charm was his weapon. He wielded it with the same precision she wielded her silence. They made an excellent pair. Gregory laughed, joking about the event and the people in the room, but Elise was already watching the crowd. She observed the power players, the quiet figures who were carefully calculating their next move, just as she was. She recognized them immediately. They were like her, hidden in plain sight. If you've always felt different, sharper, more calculating, more aware than those around you, this is your path. Dark intelligence is for those who can stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically. It's for those who know that most people are driven by fear or desire for approval, and those who are ready to take control of their own future by manipulating those hidden forces. As the night wore on, Elise remained silent, letting the conversations unfold around her. She could feel the tension building, a sense that something would shift soon, an opportunity would present itself. All she had to do was be ready. The mechanics of dark intelligence now. Let's break down how you begin to operate with dark intelligence. This journey doesn't start with reading textbooks or memorizing facts. It begins with noticing. You must become an observer, not a participant. In conversations, you listen to what isn't being said, the pauses, the shifts in tone, the small inconsistencies. These are the clues that reveal true intentions and hidden motives. Elise sat in the corner of the event hall, a glass of water in her hand, watching as people mingled, laughed, and made deals without even realizing it. Each movement, each gesture, each glance, she saw it all. She didn't need to speak to influence the outcome of the night. Her mind was already working, calculating. You start to see beyond the surface, the way people lie, and always with dramatic gestures. It's in the slight tremor of their voice, the minute change in their body language. You won't just notice what they say, but also how they say it. And with that knowledge, you can begin to manipulate the psychological levers that influence their behavior. The night ended without fanfare. The people left the event thinking it was just another gala, another gathering of the rich and influential. But Elise knew better. She had seen the levers being pulled. She had seen the invisible strings being manipulated, and she would use that knowledge to her advantage. Silence becomes your greatest tool. In conversations, when everyone else is desperate to fill the space with words, you remain still, letting the silence work for you. People will instinctively fill that void, revealing information they hadn't planned to share. They will expose their weaknesses, their fears, and their hidden agendas. Elise closed her eyes for a moment, taking in the calm of her apartment. She had learned to master the silence, to let it speak for her when words were unnecessary. And in that silence, she found her greatest strength. Mastering emotional control. The most dangerous minds aren't swayed by their emotions. You will learn to detach from your own feelings, processing them privately, so they never dictate your actions. When others are driven by anger, fear, or pride, you will remain calm, objective, and strategic. Your ability to manage your emotions will make you unpredictable and untouchable. Elise had learned this lesson long ago. When people acted out of emotion, they made mistakes. Their decisions were influenced by fear, jealousy, or pride. Elise didn't allow herself to be swayed by any of those things. She understood them, yes, but she never let them cloud her judgment. This made her a formidable opponent, one who could always remain several steps ahead. Taking control. Dark intelligence doesn't scream for attention. It controls everything with quiet precision. Every conversation becomes a strategic engagement. You will guide discussions without anyone realizing you're in control. Your words will become surgical, planted carefully to shape perceptions and outcomes to your advantage. Elise stood in front of the window, watching the city below. It was almost time. The final pieces of her plan were in motion, and soon, everything would fall into place. No one would see it coming, and when it did, it would feel inevitable. The world would simply be where it was always meant to be, shaped by her hand, without anyone knowing it. Conclusion: the path of dark intelligence. The final question ain't whether you have the capacity for dark intelligence. You do. The real question is whether you're ready to shed the illusions that have held you back, whether you're ready to master the subtle art of control that will transform your life. Elise smiled to herself, knowing that this path wasn't for everyone. Most people wouldn't understand it. They would never realize that the real power was always in the quiet moments, in the spaces between words. But she understood, and that's what made her unstoppable. By understanding these principles, you'll stop being manipulated by others. You'll stop being surprised by the predictable patterns of human behavior, and you'll start becoming the kind of person who controls not just their destiny, but the world around them. This journey into dark intelligence is about more than just intelligence. It's about freedom. The freedom to shape your world, control your relationships, and achieve your objectives with quiet, unshakable confidence. Once you understand the forces at play, there's no going back. And that's when the real transformation begins.